Hi guys, welcome to the NiKo Show. Today we are going to talk about the age-old topic in gaming, which is 30 FPS versus 60 FPS. Now, yes, there are many people who are fine with 30 FPS, but outright I would love to say that I love 60 frames per second. Okay, I am the kind of guy who will prefer a blurry looking game, but that should run at 60 FPS. Yes, it's okay if it's a little bit unoptimized where the frames switch between 55 to 60, but I would much rather prefer that fluctuation than to play a game logged at 30 FPS. Now, case in point, Stalker 2. Now, Stalker 2 has a performance mode which allows you to play at 60 frames per second, although it never touches 60 frames per second, but the experience on performance mode is way better than playing it on 30 FPS mode. So why we are having this discussion, or rather why I decided to make this video, is because this current generation that we are in gaming, the major highlight which was promised to us was that there will be higher fidelity games, like games would run on 60 FPS. They were even promising 120 FPS. If you remember the old videos from Xbox, which is when they were just about to release Xbox Series X. Now the name wasn't yet revealed. It was some kind of a project. I don't know. Was it Project Scorpio or something? No, I don't know. So basically, Xbox Series X nomenclature wasn't revealed at that time. They were focusing so much on 120 frames. Games will be faster. They are faster to load. There are no loading screens right now. So that is the best advantage that we have got in this generation of gaming. But we were also promised that the games would be 60 frames per second strictly. But if we go back a bit and talk about games like Redfall, Starfield, and Hellblade 2, they were all 30 FPS at launch. Now, out of these games, Starfield and Redfall did eventually get patched a 60 frames per second mode, but at launch they were 30 frames. Now again, I'm not bashing Xbox because I own an Xbox Series X, okay? So I want them to do better because I own that console, so I would love Xbox to bring the best guns forward. But what was promised to us many times, it wasn't delivered. Now if you remember, this same happened with Avowed. Avowed was promised to come with 30 frames. They were saying we won't be able to optimize it to 60. Now I'm not talking it when it was released in February. When it was when the gameplay was revealed in 2023 during Xbox Showcase, or I think during those days, they said it will be 30 frames. But when the release date came closer, they started to reveal that no, we are working on it and the game will be able to reach 60 frames. So eventually they did launch with 60 frames per second. So again, we were promised 60 frames per second, so I think it is time for us to demand that games should be standard 60 frames per second. Like, there should be no discussion about it, in my opinion, because I really love 60 frames per second, and many of my friends also prefer the same, and even many people on the internet prefer the same. Now, yes, there are people who think that 30 FPS is enough, but that is something that we will talk about later in this video. So I just wanted to give you an example. Like, Xbox promised us, and even some PlayStation games promised us, that we are going to be giving 60 frames per second standard. That is the focus of this generation, but that just didn't happen, unfortunately, in all the games. So talking about one thing I missed about Hellblade is that Hellblade 2 launched with 30 FPS, but Hellblade 1 has 60 frames per second. So you cannot bring up the point that Hellblade 2 is more graphically intensive, so we cannot. Well, then make it less intensive. Like that is the trade-off we have to make. So if it is intensive, make it less intensive to give people who love 60 frames an option to play it on 60 frames. So that is what I'm saying. Now, why do I prefer over 60 frames? Why now you would be thinking, why does this man think that 60 frames is so important? Well, first of all, 60 FPS makes the experience smoother. Now, take example of Cyberpunk, okay? Now, Cyberpunk, I played that game at launch on my PS4, my old PS4, and I kid you not, the experience was horrendous. Now, I'm not talking about launch, okay? I'm talking about playing the game patched. Now, the Cyberpunk 2077 game was patched a lot. So I bought the game when it was in a condition where it was playable, so the frame rates were more stable, but I wasn't enjoying the game. Now when I bought the Xbox Series X in 2023 and I bought the game on sale, and Cyberpunk was a different beast on 60 frames per second. So just pick any game and play it on 30 frames, and then after a while take a break, next day play the same game on 60 frames, and you tell me the difference. Wouldn't you prefer 60 frames per second? Right? So that is one of the important things for me, is that the experience should be smoother. That is why I prefer 60 frames, right? Now, why I'm saying that 60 frames is important, I already told you, but now you would say, now that some people might say that, oh well, what about graphics? Do you want games to be pixelated? No. Like, come on, I don't want games to be pixelated, but we all know that there is something called as optimization. So why don't you optimize games that, okay, let's cut corners, maybe have some blurry textures that people won't interact with too often, and let's run the game at 60 frames. That trade-off has happened in many games. When you look at games like Rage 2 especially, there are many blurry textures in that game, right? When you play games like Doom, there are many blurry textures in Doom, right? There are many ways that you can make your game run at 60 frames per second, right? So rather than focusing on graphics, my suggestion is that, or my opinion is that, it is better to focus on optimization now. Next generation, rather than focusing on increasing the graphics or enhancing the graphics, they should focus on 60 frames. Every game by default should be 60 frames. Like, there should be no dispute on it, there should be no discussion on it. Bam, just launch the game 60 frames per second, no questions asked. Now you will say, well, what about people who want 30 frames? Well, I'm not against those people. Like, most of the games have an option to play it at the highest fidelity, like 4K resolution and 30 frames. Have that option for people. I am not against that. I'm not against people having fun. More options the merrier, right? Give people the option to play at 4K with ray tracing, with all the bells and whistles, and with 30 frames. I have no intention to oppose those kind of people, but I have problem with people who say that 30 frames is enough for me. Now, it's okay that it's enough for you, but the thing is, we already have a taste of the drug called 60 frames per second, okay? So once you give me a taste of something good, I want that goodness. I don't want something which is sufficient, right? As a gamer, as a buyer, I want something which is elite, right? If I'm paying full price for a game, I'd rather have the option to play it on 60 frames per second, right? My problem is with people who say, no, 30 FPS is alright, 30 FPS should be there, 30 FPS is okay for all of them. There are people, okay, you would say, who tells that? There are many people on the internet who comment on under YouTube videos that, oh, 30 FPS is okay, like a tyrant. Like, come on guys, let's be real, okay? There are people who want to play games at 60 frames per second, so let's give them the option to play at 60 frames, and let there be an option for 30 frames for people who like the slow pace of those 30 FPS games, right? So that is my problem with people who say that, okay, 30 FPS is enough, right? And another aspect that I wanted to talk about 60 FPS is that since 60 FPS is smoother, okay, you get more immersed in a game. Now you might say, oh, this is just a small factor. Immersion is a small factor. But, well, guys, for me, it is a big factor. And for many people, it is a big factor to immerse yourself in a game. Now, if I'm playing a game like Dead Space, if I'm playing a game like Callisto, or if I'm playing a game like Metro, just play those games in 60 frames and play those same games in 30 frames. You will see the difference in immersion. Okay, so 60 frames immerses you better, because let's be honest, 30 frames looks good and it looks cinematic. But let's not forget, games are not movies. Okay, games may have become cinematic, and I love cinematic games. I love Red Dead, I love God of War, the new God of War. I love Last of Us, the first one, not the second one. But guys, games are an interactive medium. Okay, game should be 60 frames per second, because at the end of the day you are interacting, and that interaction should be the smoothest, right? That increases the immersion, it increases the value of the game. It shows that developers care for both the demographic, who want 30 frames and who doesn't want 30 frames. And I don't care for people who say only 30 fps should be standard. It's okay. Those people are coping. Okay, I don't like you. If you're one of those people, please come on, guys, grow up. Okay, so that's about this discussion, that about why 60 fps is what I want. Now, which games is 30 fps okay for, or which games I would play, I wouldn't mind playing even if they are 30 frames, will be games like Telltale games, the Walking Dead games, the Batman Telltale games, and all the other Tales from Borderlands, and all those games which are from the Telltale games, which have minimum interaction, or games like Detroit Become Human, games like Dark Pictures Anthology, Man of Medan, Quarry, all those games. I can tolerate those games at 30 frames. I can tolerate them, but not play them and immerse myself. But I will tolerate it. Why? Because they are cinematic. The main reason that the main objective behind the game is the story. So I can explain myself, I can console myself that okay, while this game focuses on story, so I'll try to play it at 30 frames. But those are the games that should be restricted to 30 frames discussion. Okay, that only that games can get away with having 30 frames only. But 60 frames for me, guys, is a must have. Okay, so this short video, I just wanted to just rant about this age old discussion that we keep having. Now you might say, why are you making this video now? Well, I just came across some comments on Reddit or somewhere where people were talking about difference between 30 frames and 60 frames, and there was this guy who was just ranting on about that, hey, 30 fps is okay with me. And there were other guys who were saying that these are games, these are not movies. And I agree with that guy. And many people in my friend circle are also saying that, come on, give us 60 frames, right? So that is it about the short video. Guys, let me know, what do you think? Do you need games to be only 30 fps? Okay, see, I'm not against that number 30. Please give people who want 30 fps the option. But also maybe think about people like us who want 60 frames in their games now, because we are paying a lot of money for these consoles, for these upgraded mid-cycle consoles like PS5 Pro, and maybe Xbox will come up with any mid-cycle console, but we are paying a lot of money for games and for consoles, so why not have the best experience, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comments, and just discuss, what do you want? Do you like 60 fps, 30 fps? And if you are the ones who only like 30 fps, well, please let me know your comment too, although I don't like the kind of guys that you are. But okay, everyone is welcome in the comment section, and I'll meet you guys in the next video. Until then, stay happy and keep gaming.